am going to update my King's Indian openings. The reason is because I started learning the King's Indian after my first tournament. And let's just say it was a little rushed. Let's just say after my first tournament, let's be honest, I still didn't know what I was doing with chess. I mean, I still don't really know what I'm doing, but the more I learn, the more I get a semblance of feeling like I know what I know, right? So my King's Indian notes are not too well written. So I'm going to have to update them because I know for certain that the King's Indian is extremely good. For some reason, the chess.com search engine is really bad. So, see, I have to search Indian. What? What? Wait, what? Oh, that's my bookmarks. Okay, yeah. I was like, what the heck? There's the Black Knight's Tango. The Indian defenses. The old Indian defense. Look at that. Rare but tricky old Indian defense. So this is the one, the King's Indian attack. When I first learned the King's Indian, I honestly didn't even know that there was a difference between the King's Indian attack and the King's Indian defense. But the reason I wanted to learn the King's Indian defense is because it's a good play against a queen pawn move, and I was tired of just trying to use my brain for Queen's Gambit stuff because that requires a lot of learning too, right? So I finished this video already today, but I was going through my notes and then I couldn't find my King's Indian section, but then I found it later. I thought I deleted it because I was just pissed that I couldn't get the King's Indian. So anyways, let's go. Let's start.
When white opens the game with d4, black can decide to play in a solid, classical style with d5, taking a fair share of the center, gradually improving the position toward equality, and then seeking chances to play for a win if possible.
Nope, that's not me.
The King's Indian defense, on the other hand, is a complex, sharp, and risky opening.
We're gonna speed it up.
Black is not trying to achieve equality, but prefers to create an imbalanced position, seeking fighting chances, often involving a sharp kingside attack.
So
we reach the King's Indian after the moves knight f6, developing a piece and controlling the center. White continues to take space with c4. A key characteristic of the King's Indian is a kingside fee and shadow.
So the thing that I will say about this is that White doesn't always play like this, man. White does not always play like this. So obviously, what's not too good about the opening science or theory, whatever you call it, is that a lot of times White doesn't follow these rules completely. So that's something to know. How does White often take more the center when you do the knight? It's an F, yeah, knight f6. So again, there's a assumption here, right, that they'll play c4. They don't always do this. So again, that's something to just keep in mind.
White continues to develop and centralizes a knight with knight c3. White is now prepared to take even more space in the center with e4. Black invites white to continue with this plan by playing bishop g7. Black's bishop develops to the long dark square diagonal, hoping to create active play on this diagonal. This move also prepares kingside castling. White continues to take space in the center with e4.
So this is the thing. This structure doesn't always happen either, right? So taking. So what chess.com's not too good at is it's not good at explaining what if black, because there is a short answer to this, which is, well, if black doesn't play, sorry, if white doesn't play like this, you just have to play chess, right? You just have to think through it. But when you're trying to learn a new opening, it's honestly asking a little too much to be like, okay, learn what it's supposed to be and then learn what tactics to spot how to think positionally and structurally if they don't do it, right? That's what makes learning openings so hard, at least in my in my kind of updated paradigm. So again, I'm just beginning, as you guys know, but there's just so much to learn. And before we keep going, let me just very quickly update the metadata, and then we will talk some more. So I hope you guys are doing well. I'll check the live chat in a second. And King's Indian defense. Learn the King's Indian. Kindian? King's Indian. Beginner learns King's Indian. These are all the things you can't do when you're trying to um, double task, right? I wish we could just do this naturally, but unfortunately, so we'll eliminate. Did I say eliminate? We will. What's the word? Allow. Wow, allow. Okay, so I'll check the live chat in a second, guys. Let's keep going here.
White enjoys a large center when black typically plays d6. We have now reached the basic position.
So again, the d6 opens up for center pawn breaks, but also opens up for the knight to come here to protect the other knight. Now, there's a tactic here that I'm still not good at spotting, because sometimes they'll try to attack your knight, and it's like half the time I played King's Indian, I just fail at that already. So, as you guys know, still a lot to learn, right? So, let's see. Boom. Standard move sequence. Move kingside knight. So, d5, this says, or c5. Yeah, so let's see. f6. So don't forget the d d6, g6. I'm missing a move here, you see. I'm missing a move here. G7. G7? Oh, bishop G7, you see? See? Haha. You can tell these were, I was just learning, I was just getting better at algebraic notation when I took these notes. This was right after my first competition. Your king, then you have to do d5. I already did that. This c5 thing is something that one of John Bartholomew's former students taught me. He said, because you see this knight might want to proactively jump here. That's why you go c5. Again, he's the only one that's taught me that, and it's worked for me in competition, but it's not what you would call mainline theory. So, yeah, so all this is good, right? All this is very good theory. Hmm. So white, we're getting ahead of ourselves, but if white goes c3 here, he can block the queen. It's like block his queen from protecting the d pawn. So that's something we'll talk about later. Anyways, guys, I'm gonna use the restroom, and I'll be right back. All right, guys, I'm back. Let me check the live chats already. Nobody's in the live chat yet, so let's see. It'd be really funny if I accidentally streamed this to the wrong place. Wouldn't put it past me, but all right, all right, here we go. Let us keep going.
Of the king's Indian defense. White has 3 pawns in the center and enjoys a space advantage, controlling many of black's key squares on the 5th rank.
Yeah, look at that control.
Black accepts this space disadvantage to later counterstrike against white's center. Notice white's pawn on d4 can only be protected by pieces, as the neighboring c and e pawns have advanced to the 4th rank.
So that's called a backward pawn, right? So yeah, so we'll go back here. We'll go here. Where is white's backward pawn if he has 3 pawns in the center? D5 is the D4? D4, yeah. D4 is the backward pawn. So the other issue is you got to constantly have references. King's Indian defense. You got to constantly update the references. So King's Indian defense. Go here. Look at all these variations. Woo! There's so many variations. Dude. Yep, so this is a common one. Right here. This is a common one. So right here, right? Look at that backward pawn, d4. So
Black has just played the move d6 to help support the center and prepare the thematic King's Indian pawn thrust e5. And in some variations, black also strikes in the center with c5. So these are 2 central pawn thrusts to keep in mind.
Yep. Oh, sorry, guys.
Since black is not in...
Sorry, I'm having technical difficulties right now, trying to figure stuff out. I think I accidentally... Oh, I'm still sharing. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put that... Oh. Ah, you stupid thing. So we're here. All right.
Immediately putting pressure on the center, white has great flexibility in deciding how to continue. White's most common move is knight f3, developing another piece.
So that is the most common move. It's called knight f3. Oh, look at that. Look at all these variations. Petrosian. Yeah, I've seen the Petrosian before. Yep. This is the Petrosian. Yep, I've seen this one before. Yep.
In supporting the center, black typically continues by castling the king. Black's king finds shelter behind the fianchettoed structure and prepares to strike in the center with e5 or c5. White's most popular response is bishop e2, which looks like a passive move. It turns out that the bishop is misplaced if white plays bishop d3.
Yeah, this is what we were talking about here. Right here. So, right, we're here. So, let's see. Use the Yep, this is the Petrosian variation. Okay. So what we'll do is we'll explore the Petrosian variation. Sometimes I didn't understand why they gave so many names to these things until I started seeing all the varieties, and then
This move does appear more active, but it blocks white's queen on the d file, meaning white's knight on f3 is the only defender of the key d4 square. This invites black to play bishop g4, pinning white's knight, which makes d4 more vulnerable to attack, with moves such as knight c6 or knight f to d7, revealing the bishop's attack against d4.
notice that
Since
discovered
moving the bishop
attack.
to d3 has serious drawbacks, this is why white typically prefers to play bishop e2,
Yeah,
developing the bishop and preparing to castle without weakening the d4 square.
yeah. Petrosian. So,
Black now has two typical ways to strike in the center. Black can play c5, which can transpose into other opening defenses. Instead of c5, black can play the more common King's Indian pawn break, e5.
yeah.
Sometimes black prefers to prepare this move with knight bd7, which is a solid move. But thanks to a key tactical resource, the main line of the King's Indian is to strike in the center immediately.
Yeah, this is the tactic I always don't get. What's the tactic to strike immediately in the center with e4? That's the key. So here, this is right here. So, what's the tactic?
With e5. On the surface, this move looks like it simply loses a pawn, but as we'll see, the hidden potential of black's dark-squared bishop prevents black from losing a pawn. After d takes e5, d takes e5, white usually trades queens with queen takes d8, rook takes d8. White should continue with bishop g5, pinning black's knight on f6. But if white tries to win a pawn with knight takes e5, white is
That's
in
the
for
key.
a rude awakening with knight
A
takes d4,
discovered attack, yeah.
regaining the pawn and discovering the dark-squared bishop's attack against white's knight.
Yeah.
If white plays knight takes e4, black will simply play bishop takes e5, centralizing the bishop as the dark-squared bishop comes to life.
Yeah.
If white tries to win a pawn with the desperado tactic, knight takes f7,
Bam.
hoping
You
that black will
equalize.
play king takes f7, when
Yeah.
white would then win material with knight takes e4. It's important for us to remember black's instructive resource, bishop takes c3 check.
Yeah, that would be an intermezzo.
Instead of winning a pawn, white loses a piece after b takes c3,
And then boom, king.
takes
Yeah,
f7.
yeah. So this is one of the things about the King's Indian structure that this guy has basically never been able to take advantage of. So the knight and bishop combo on the a1 to h8 diagonal can do various discovered attacks to equalize, if not be ahead in exchange. That's why if if d takes e5 happens and then d takes E5 happens. Uh, uh, in response, a queen trade usually happens. So in the Petrosian, they leave the tension on the board. So that's the key. So that's the key little, because if you look here, you see how they leave the tension and then there's an advance. So so
It's really important to review as well as fully understand this line,
that's the
as
key.
this is the tactical justification that allows black to play so aggressively in the main line of the
That's the
King's
key.
Indian. Since black is not losing a pawn after the thematic e5 strike,
Then the
white's most common
advance.
response
Yep.
is castling the king.
Yep.
Black has several options in this position, including knight b to d7, as well as e takes d4, trying to open up the long dark square diagonal for black's bishop on g7, as well as opening up the e-file, preparing rook e8 to add pressure to the e4 pawn.
Yep.
Both of these ideas are reasonable, but black's most aggressive and double-edged move is the main line, knight c6. Black adds more.
Ooh. Knight c6. So look at this. This doesn't show that, right? So this immediately he castles this way, and then he goes here. So actually, this isn't the Petrosian. I guess this is the main line. Oh yeah, we're gonna learn about that next. There's a lot of Bobby Fischer loved the King's Indian. So I guess we're in the main line right now. The Petrosian's later. They leave.
Pressure against white's center, especially the key d4 square. If white plays bishop e3, adding another defender to d4, black can play knight g4, attacking the bishop and revealing black's dark squared bishop's pressure against the center when black has created good fighting chances. White's main response is to take space and confront black's provocative play with d5. Now that the center is closed,
So here, if you look,
black transfers the knight to the king side with knight e7.
oh yeah, that makes sense. So that's the difference between the Petrosian and the main line. It's almost like in the French defense, there's like a similar theme where you bait the advance to to help you further develop, right? And that's what we're learning here. Um, so the question we ask is, when do you develop the knight to the queen side knight to what's the word I'm looking for? Shift it? Shift it, yeah. Over to the king side. How does black bait a pawn advance from white? So you do knight. That would be well, that'd be c6. Trying to get better with my algebraic notation. So then it would be the d pawn. It would be to threaten d5, and then your knight would shift over. Let me think about this. Where would it shift to? The knight would shift to the e, right? Knight. Is it 7? This is me not really able to look at the board. I think it's knight e7. Yeah, e7. I'm right. Okay, good, good. Hey, his brain's getting a little bit better at memorizing, right? Okay, cool. So
The cards have been drawn. White has a space advantage and can prepare to fight for more space on the queen side with moves such as b4 and c5. Black can attack white's center with c6, a resource to keep in mind, but black's main idea is to move the knight away from f6 and begin a kingside attack with f5.
Yeah.
We can see the clash of ideas, white attacking on the queen side, and black committing to an all-or-nothing kingside attack after the moves knight e1, intending to centralize the knight with knight d3, which then prepares the thematic c5 pawn break.
Yeah. Okay. How does attack kingside? How does white attack queenside? So that's just something to remember. So then we can get the Petrosian. That's the main line. Yep. And then there's the Petrosian. The Petrosian basically prevents this, right? Knowing what we just knew, that the knight's eventually going to go here. And this is going to go... which one? Which one? Oh yeah, once you castle, this is going to go this way to pawn break here, right? So Petrosian basically proactively prevents him from developing that knight. I got it. So that's the Petrosian. Notice now you can't develop the queen side knight to go to... You can still go this way, right? Actually, you can't. You're kind of blocked. You would have to... Ooh, this is tough. Yeah, I see. To king side as easily. Notice now as black. Yeah, I got this.
Moving the knight away from f3 also prepares the pawn move f3, building a pawn chain from g2 to d5 and strengthening the center. Black can play the move knight e8, but more commonly plays knight d7, preparing f5 and also adding protection to the c5 square. White has two main choices to consider. One option is to play bishop e3, developing a piece and preparing to help attack on the queen side. This move invites f5, when after f3, black can gain a tempo against white's dark-squared bishop with f4. When white's dark-squared bishop retreats to f2, both sides can expect razor-sharp play.
Oof.
Another option for white is to continue with the knight maneuver, knight d3. White centralizes the knight and helps prepare c5. Black continues with the thematic King's Indian pawn break, f5.
Should go anyways.
Black would like to see e takes f5.
So which pawn?
When this will help open up the dark square bishop with an eventual pawn push, e4. Instead, white can continue to calmly develop with bishop d2. The bishop avoids moving to e3, where it will simply be attacked by black's pawn.
Yeah, exactly.
The main point behind this modest bishop move is to prepare rook c1. Let's watch how both sides continue to pursue their respective plans. White will attack on the queen side, and black will continue on the king side. After knight f6, black adds more pressure to the e4 pawn.
E4 pawn.
So white reinforces the center with f3. Black can now grab more space on the king side with f4. And white can continue to grab space on the queen side with the thematic pawn break, c5.
c5.
Black's kingside pawn storm rushes forward with...
Wow. Which pawn break often happens for white? c5. It's just a common thing, right? You want to break the... you break in a way to give your side more space. So notice the direction that black's pointing the pawns at, right? This is where the space can be gained. So if you want to break somewhere, you break here. Whereas white, look, notice the direction the pawns point at. That's where he can develop. So you break this way, right? Because then your pieces can attack. So it's like a common thing. Like once you look at pawn structures more, you start understanding. Oh, so
With g5, it feels risky to advance pawns in front of the
look
king,
at
and
this.
black does need to be careful. But as the center is closed, it isn't so easy for white to exploit the weaknesses around black's king for the time being.
Yeah.
White should continue to focus on invading black's queenside with rook c1.
So when can black close this pawn structure with a the reason I'm writing these questions is that way when I look back, I have prompts to kind of learn better. Because if you just take notes, you sometimes don't know what's important, right? You got to give yourself prompts. You got to give yourself cues.
Prepares to add pressure down the c file, and black can now improve the position of the e7 knight with knight g6. Both of black's knights are now well positioned to help attack on the king side, and this knight may invade
This
on
is
the
great.
h4 square in the future. Black's bishop on c8 often watches the king side from a distance.
Look at that sniper. Look at that sniper bishop right there. You see that? Oh, I can draw. I just realized I can draw. I can draw. How do I draw? How do I draw? How do I draw? There's a way to let's see. There's a way to I don't know why I can't draw right now. There's a way to draw that's really cool. Let me see. I want to draw for you guys real quickly because that way you guys actually never mind. We'll figure. Oh, annotate. There it is. There's the annotation tools. Okay, cool. I'm gonna turn this off, and then we get the annotation tools ready. Ah, look at this. This is so cool. How do I draw here? Look at. Oh, my lines are so bad. I'm so sorry. Let me stamp. Oh, you are killing me. Spotlight? What is this? Oh, look at that. Look, there it is. Look at this. Look at the bishop. Look at its long range sniping abilities. You see that? Look at that. Okay, here.
To force white's pawn to advance to h3, this piece may sacrifice itself on that square to help open lines against the enemy king. White doesn't waste any time and opens up the c file with c takes d6. C takes d6. With this exchange, white has opened up the c file.
Oh, I see. Which file is very important for white's rook? C file. Yep, that makes sense. So that's where he breaks.
It has also turned the d6 pawn into a backward pawn, so black's pieces will need to defend this weak target that white will attack.
Yep.
White can continue with knight b5, adding pressure to the backward d6 pawn, and prepares to invade black's territory with knight c7, attacking the rook and also eyeing the e6 square. Black can now combine attack and defense with rook f7, protecting the c7 square and also opening up the f8 square for the bishop. This helps protect the weak d6 pawn, and by vacating the g7 square, black's rook is now able to play rook g7, where it will help support black's kingside attack, especially after g4.
God, it's position's so complex. People were like, yeah, King's Indian's basic. It's easy for beginners. No, it's not. This black reshuffle. Shuffle. There. His rook and bishop. Rook and bishop for attack and defense of his backward pawn. I'm gonna have to have screenshots here as I do some of the exercises.
After queen c2, white adds more pressure to the c-file in the c7 square in particular. Black can play knight e8, defending c7 as well as d6,
Yep.
and can also consider to continue the attack with g4. The forcing queen d6 check, forking white's king and knight on b5, does not actually win a piece, as white can play knight f2, defending against the check and revealing the bishop's defense of the knight.
Yeah.
Of course, both sides have several ways to play this complex position, but this at least gives us a sense of what both sides are trying to accomplish in the main lines of the King's Indian. Instead of knight e1, white can also grab space on the queen side immediately with b4. This is known as the bayonet attack, preparing white's typical pawn thrust c5.
So then you have bayonet attack. Bayonet attack. King's Indian defense. Bayonet attack. There it is. So we're here. So this one. Bayonet attack right here.
Black can respond with knight h5, preparing the thematic pawn break f5, and also eyeing the f4 square with the knight.
That is where this stuff comes in. That is where this stuff comes in, right? That's where this stuff comes in. Yeah, right there. Look at that. Yeah, this is it.
Another idea is to disturb white's queenside plans with a5. Black attacks the bayonet pawn, trying to provoke white to advance with b5, when black can shut down the queenside with b6, eliminating white's play on the queenside, so black will have a free hand to attack on the kingside.
Ooh, that's cool. How can black play? Attack king side or close down queen side. With let's h5. Yeah, h5. The Harrod pawn. I guess if you take, he takes with his rook, right? So then his rook's develop, so you don't necessarily want that.
One idea for
fudge. It's A. It's flipped. A5.
white is to play b takes a5, but another strong move for white is to play bishop a3, protecting the b4 pawn and still preparing c5 with a complex position.
Ooh.
In the main line of the King's Indian, both sides must be ready for a sharp middle game fight after white castles and allows knight c6. A more positional approach for white is to play d5, known as the Petrosian variation.
There it is.
White grabs space in the center and prevents knight c6.
Yep.
One drawback to this move is that the c5 square is no longer protected, so black can play knight a6.
Wow. So many knight on the rim moves. This is c5. Right, that's a hole. I hate that word, but that's a hole, as they say in chess. Black can knight on the rim. Queen side knight on the rim. because the knight can jump there. Yeah,
with the idea after white castles to attack the central e-pawn with knight
with knight
c5.
c5.
White can
Yeah.
defend the center with queen c2.
What's the purpose to jump to the square that can attack the e pawn? Yeah, that's a great. That's how you plan moves in 2 and 3, right?
When white would love to force black's knight to retreat from its active post with b4, so black should play a5.
There
When black
it
has
is.
reasonable play to compensate
See
for
that?
white's space advantage in central control.
How does black prevent its c5 knight from outpost from threat? a5. The Petrosian sounds like a very promising line for black.
If white does not want to develop normally in castle kingside, allowing black's typical kingside attack, another interesting option is to play f3, known as the Zamish system.
This is the Zamish system. F3 is the Zamish system. Oh, Zamish. That's how you spell it. Zamish. So. So this is called the Zamish system. So then. Zamish system.
f3 supports the center, and after the typical move castle kingside, white can play bishop e3. We can now appreciate another aspect of f3. It prevents knight g4, disturbing white's dark-squared bishop. White may consider queen d2, preparing to castle queenside, when it actually may be black that has to face a kingside attack with moves such as g4 and h4, h5. Like most variations in the King's Indian, black can continue to strike in the center with e5, but another dynamic option is to play c5. When white moves the dark-squared bishop, c5 is often a thematic strike, as b2 is no longer protected, and black tries to open up the influence of the dark-squared bishop on the long diagonal. The move c5 also allows black to develop the queen, often with queen a5, or in some cases, queen b6 or queen c7. If white plays d5, then black will attack white's center with e6, and will also plan to attack white's pawn center with the flank attack a6, b5. We've actually transposed to another opening known as the Benoni defense, which is based upon attacking white's center with c5.
Interesting. So I had a little note there. C7. Too advanced. Like a lot of these notes down here, just too advanced, man. I don't remember where I took these notes. Just yeah, I don't know.
Instead of playing d5, white can accept black's pawn sacrifice after d takes c5. D takes c5. Black's queen is ready to create some counterplay on the queen side with a move such as queen a5, so white typically trades queens with queen takes d8, rook takes d8. When white accepts the pawn sacrifice with bishop takes c5, white's bishop eyes the unprotected e7 pawn, so black continues to develop actively with knight c6.
Yeah. Yeah, I see. So Sandwich. How does black offer a pawn? I'm probably gonna learn the Petrosian. I think Samish requires a little bit memorization that's not too intuitive, right? Whereas Petrosian makes sense in my head. I'm gonna let my chess group know too.
White is up a pawn, but black's dark squared bishop will become incredibly strong on the long dark squared
Yeah,
diagonal
look at that.
once black's knight on f6 opens up this diagonal.
Wow. I'll be right back, guys. I'm gonna go use the restroom. I drank a big can of. Actually, you have it right here. I drank this, so they should sponsor me. These guys should sponsor me. Let me reach out to them. I just shouted them out. God, it's so annoying. It's Be right back, guys. Let me just tell my chess group. The Petrosian. I'm just telling one of my mentors, Liam, who you vet. Just tell. So now, yeah, I use the restroom first. I'll be right back, guys. All right, guys, I'm back. Let's keep sharing. Actually, before I keep going, let me check. Oh, what's up? Hey man, you can add me. We can try Bullet. I don't really play Bullet, but I'll play you. So let's see if he added me. All right, so
Black enjoys a lead in development and active piece play to compensate for the pawn. Instead of focusing on playing e4 as quickly as possible, White has another positional option to consider with g3. In the fianchetto variation, both sides develop in a similar fashion on the king side after the natural developing moves bishop g7.
this is the fianchetto variation. Here it is, the fianchetto variation. Excuse me, guys. The fianchetto variation. The fianchetto variation is really cool. Look at that. And then it leads to a Marcosi bind here. So we'll find out later.
Bishop g2. castle's kingside, white can continue to develop and prepare castling with knight f3. Black now plays the standard King's Indian move, d6. As always, preparing to strike in the center with e5 or even c5. White's king evacuates the center with castling kingside. Notice that both sides have a symmetrical position on the king side, so it won't be as easy to launch direct kingside attacks like some of the other lines we've discussed. Black has many ways to play this position, but as you're learning the King's Indian defense, one common setup you can use in most variations is knight e to d7. When in doubt, you can almost always play knight b to d7, followed by e5. Typical play can continue with knight c3, e5. White can now grab space in the center with e4. When after e takes d4, knight takes d4.
Look at that.
Black can play rook e8, adding more pressure against the e4 pawn and preparing knight c5, which is an important resource to remember if you capture white's pawn on d4. White will enjoy a space advantage, but black will have reasonable pressure against white's center, offering a strategically rich game with chances for both sides.
How does this lead to a Marcosi bind? So this one might be fun. It's just I think this is going to take a little bit to, because I was asking Liam what exactly, like, why is Marcosi bind so important, right? And Liam couldn't really explain it too well either. So, we'll just have to, there's just one of those things you play and you get better at, right? Marcosi bind.
So far, white has been satisfied with maintaining a solid space advantage, but what if white wants to punish black for not directly occupying the center?
Yeah, this is the weak one, the 4 pawns attack. That is not good. So this is what they're talking about. 4 pawns attack. So this one, the 4 pawns attack, I think is the weakest one. The 4 pawns attack right here.
White would like to play e5, but black's pawn on d6 is ready to play d takes e5. When after d takes e5, black is simply able to trade queens, when the pawn on e5 will prove overextended. If white wants to try and punish black with an early e5, then white can employ the 4 pawns attack with f4. Yeah. White has a serious space advantage, but black does not have to fear the 4 pawns attack, as long as black remembers to energetically counterstrike in the center. Black can play c5 immediately, or else calmly castle the king. If white plays knight f3, adding more control to e5, black can strike against the center immediately with c5, adding pressure.
I see. So right here, the central pawn break is c5. It seems like that's a theme, huh? That's a theme. Yeah. What is black's central pawn break? Central, it said. e5. Did I say e5? Sorry, c5.
Against white's d4 pawn and preparing the aggressive queen move, queen a5, creating more pressure against white's position. If white tries to immediately grab space with e5, black's knight can now enjoy the retreat square vacated by black's king, allowing knight e8, moving the knight to safety and revealing the dark squared bishop's pressure on the long diagonal. After knight f3, black can play knight d7, adding more pressure against the e5 pawn and preparing c5.
It's just, the thing about this position is that if you move your knight there, look how crammed you are, man. You see, look how crammed you are. What if he goes here, right? Boom. Like, you're crammed, man. I guess, yeah, this is the thing about playing the King's Indian. You have to be very, very okay with being very compact, right? And now that I've played the French defense a little bit, maybe I'll feel comfortable doing the King's Indian. But I remember when I was playing the King's Indian when I first started learning, part of it is just I didn't know how to play the King's Indian, but a lot of it was also I just felt crammed, even if I knew how to play. Even the games I won, I felt crammed. It was really claustrophobic.
But black can also play the instructive pawn sacrifice, c5.
That's probably what
Black
I
has
would do.
added serious pressure to white's pawns on e5 and d4, both on the long dark squared diagonal. Once again, we see black trying to activate the dark squared bishop.
Yeah.
Black
So, what to always keep in mind: pawn break in a way to activate the dark squared diagonal of the bishop that's fianchettoed. Fianchettoed. So,
Black is ready to destroy white's center with c takes d4, and after d takes c5, knight c6. Black is ready to regain material, so after white plays c takes d6 and e takes d6, black has sacrificed a pawn, but has tremendous pressure against white's e5 pawn. If white captures the d6 pawn, then black's bishop will become incredibly active on the long dark square diagonal, when black's active pieces and queenside pressure will more than compensate for a pawn. This is why the four pawns attack isn't so popular, as white cannot roll over black in this variation.
I see. What's black's ultimate goal? Get white to overextend so that black can queenside attack black.
The King's Indian defense is one of the most uncompromising, double-edged responses to d4. White is allowed to build up a strong center when black is ready to strike back with d5, or in some cases, c5. If you are not overly concerned about reaching an equal position as black, and are willing to accept positional risks in order to create sharp, at times chaotic play, then the King's Indian defense may be for you. Thanks for exploring the King's Indian defense, and best of luck navigating these exciting, complex waters if you choose to play either side of the King's Indian defense.
So this one, the Averbach. This is the one I was playing around with when I was in the coffee shop earlier. I was calculating with this. This seems like an actually very natural move. So looks like this is one that eventually I'll have to learn too. But I kept thinking because when I would play King's Indian, people would do this. People would do this to me all the time. And so, yeah, I thought about this. So here, the Averbach. So this discourages the typical e7 trying to break here, e5, e7 to e5 pawn break. Yeah, because that's a pin. Yeah, exactly. So sometimes they'll play that after you play it. Yeah. Play this pin after you do e5. So yeah, I was definitely looking at that when I was looking at the board earlier when I was at the coffee shop. So yeah, lots to learn, right? Lots to learn. And then we trade. He'll go there, and then I go there. Let's see. So 2, 3. We'll see what they recommend. Yeah, they recommend using the knight. See that the knight to go there. So yeah. So they recommend that. I guess this goes to the rim, right? Knight H. Knight h5. Knight h5. Yeah, knight to the rim. Ah, that's where this variation comes from. Oh, that's where this variation comes from. So I guess, well, I'll have a separate section called thematic attacking ideas. Right? Look at that. Look at, you see this? That bishop. Um so let's think about this for a second. If he goes here. So this is still the main line. Mm. So this D takes E, D takes E. So let me put this here. Put this here. Premature exchange. Notice. So okay. This is the four pawns. You C7 here. Let's see. Attack it again. You just keep attacking. Because again, you want to activate this diagonal, right? Right here. No, that's not good. Yeah, then he closes it. Just capture. Right there. This one. Let's see. Whoop, 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 whoop. Let's see. That's the bayonet attack. So that was from the bayonet attack, right? That's from the bayonet attack. Black's best plan is to advance the F pawn to gain space on the king. How should you prepare this advance? Nope, nope, don't do that. Mm, you don't want to do that. Nope. This is when. Oh, you go here first. Now you go. This is still the man. This is still. Right here. And then you go here. How does white defend? Pyramid punching. Yep. I don't think I need to take note of that. It's not. Nope, that's not that. Vital move. This is the one here. So that's a fork mechanism. C5. Yeah, this is when he's broken. He's broken this way. So he successfully broke it on C5, right? Oh my god. Put it here. Right there. This was the earlier thing. Go here. This was the earlier thing. I like that they reviewed the stuff from the beginning in the very early. Here's an example. Hold up. So this is an example of the Marcosi bind. Same Samshish Fianchetto. That's the Fianchetto. So notice. Yeah, that's okay. Anyways, guys, this was fun. As you can tell, there's so much to learn. And at the end of the day, you should really invest time in learning tactics, right? So we'll stop it here. Thank you guys so much, man. Thank you guys so much. We will stop it here.